Alright guys, I am back yet again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 1 of my Stoicheia Granfia deck. So version 1, everything through the second additional card pass, so through D Booster Set 10. And this is another deck that focuses on plant tokens, and actually allows you to generate a special kind of token called a Noblesserose token, which will allow you to turn all your other plant tokens into plant gauge for that unit, which will then let you power up your Noblesserose, as well as letting you sacrifice those plant gauge in order to pay the cost for some of your other skills. So as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight for you to see it in action. So starting first with the Ride deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is Kind Lordling Granfia. So when he's rode upon, if you want second, draw a card. Same starter skill as always. Next for the Grade 1, we have Future Suzerain Granfia. So he has an auto ability that says when this unit is rode upon by Genius Wise Wolf Granfia, you may call a plant token to rearguard circle. So you can't see the token units when you're outside of a fight in this game, so I will throw up a screenshot just to show a plant token. But they are just vanilla grade 0 5k units, so nothing real special about them, but they are vital for this deck to function. And this ability does just give you a free plant token onto your board when you ride over top of them. So some free card advantage, always very nice. Next for the Grade 2, we have Genius Wise Wolf Granfia. So he has a continuous ability that says if your rearguard circle has a plant token, and your soul has a Future Suzerain Granfia, when you would ride a Grade 3 card with Granfia in its card name from your Ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from hand. So of course your Grade 1 Granfia will be giving you at least one plant token onto your board, and by that point, thanks to our rearguards, you actually should have multiple plant tokens on your board most of the time at that point. So if you have at least one plant token out, you do get a free ride into your Grade 3 form. Now, since it is reliant on having a specific unit on your board, it is potentially susceptible to control decks. If your opponent is able to wipe all your plant tokens off your board before the start of your turn, then when you would be ready to ride, you wouldn't be able to meet this ability's condition, in which case this card basically does nothing. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, there isn't really anything you can do about it. But yeah, in most cases you should have at least one plant token that survives on your board long enough to get this free ride, thanks to this card. So a little bit iffy, but it can potentially give you some more free card advantage. So then lastly for the Grade 3, we have Lavian Lord Granfia. So first off, he has an activate ability that says once per turn you can Soul Blast one, and all the plant tokens on your rearguard circle become plant gauges. You call a Noblesserose token to your back row center rearguard circle, and put all of your plant gauges on that unit. So again, I'll throw up a screenshot so you can see the Noblesserose token. Again, it is a Grade 0 5k unit, but this one does have some abilities that we need to go through. So it has this continuous skill that says this unit cannot be moved to other circles, and if you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, all of the following effects are active. So first off, when you would place a plant token on rearguard circle, you put it as this unit's plant gauge instead. Secondly, this unit gets power plus 5,000 for each of this unit's gauge. And then lastly, when you would retire rearguards as a cost, if it can be paid by retiring plant token rearguards, it can also be paid by discarding plant gauges. So this is the token you call to your back row center thanks to Granfia's ability. Granfia's ability is the only way to bring out this token, but when you do bring it out, it turns all of the plant tokens that you already had on your board into plant gauge for this card, as well as any future plant tokens you would play also getting turned into plant gauge for this card. Which means once your Noblesserose is on your board, you actually can't call plant tokens normally anymore. since that turning them into gauge effect is mandatory. Which gauge is a concept that I believe was introduced in V-Series, if I remember correctly. And basically what it is you just take all those plant gauge and you stack them up underneath your Noblesserose. And they don't technically do anything in and of themselves, but thanks to the Noblesserose's ability, she does gain 5,000 power for each one of those gauges equipped. And you have the option of discarding those gauges whenever you would retire a rearguard. You can use that for the cost instead. Which actually we only have one rearguard in this deck that has a retire cost tied to it. And it's actually a card that's not vital by any means. So the third part of this skill doesn't get used a ton for any of your other effects, really. However, those plant gauges do end up getting discarded thanks to the cost of Granfia's second skill, his auto ability, that says at the end of the battle this unit attacked. You can put one or more up to a total of 5 Noblesserose tokens or plant gauges into your drop. To choose one of your rearguards and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn for each card put into drop for this cost. And if you put 3 or more cards into drop, you stay in that unit. So since tokens can't exist in the drop zone when you use the skill, those tokens do just kind of poof out of existence. However, it does allow you to discard up to 5 of those plant gauges and or the Noblesserose token itself in order to power up and potentially restand one of your rearguards. So it does give you your 4th attack every turn, and you do always want to send at least 3 cards to the drop for this cost in order to get that restand, if you have the 3 available to send, of course. Which most of the cards in this deck are dedicated to stacking as many plant gauge as possible onto your Noblesserose. So your Rose should be hitting some very large numbers on her own. When she will be boosting your Vanguards, that means your center column will be swinging for some massive numbers most of the time. And then at the end of that battle, you can use that skill to restand one of your rearguards and power it up for 15 to 25k, depending on how many you send. So overall, this is a 4 attack deck with at least 2 of those attacks being able to hit some very massive numbers. So when you combine that with the fact that this deck is capable of rushing very effectively, since you can just swarm your field with plant tokens early on, this deck's offense can actually be surprisingly effective, especially if your opponent doesn't get lucky and check any damage triggers. So overall, just a very cool Vanguard for this deck. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck, first off for the grade 3s. We of course have our 3 additional copies of Lavian Lord Granfia for our Persona ride purposes. Double frame rare, of course. So then the only other grade 3 we're running is 1 copy of Burst Peas. So he has an auto ability that says once per turn, when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1 and retire a plant token, and this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So this card is the one card I mentioned that does have a retire cost tied to it, so thanks to your Noblesserose, you can just remove a plant gauge instead. And this card can be at least a 23k beat stick. So this card is not necessary at all. I am honestly mostly just running him because I really like his artwork. So if you want to replace him with anything else, you can feel free to do so. But he can make a nice extra 23k beat stick for this deck. So that's all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of Rangerine, which is a great name. But he has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you may call a plant token to rearguard circle. And then he has his second auto ability when he's on a front row rearguard circle. That says at the beginning of your battle phase, if you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, you may call a plant token to rearguard circle. So this card is one of the primary plant token / plant gauge generators for this deck. The turn that you call it, you get 2 plant gauge for free, and then if it stays on your board, you get 1 more free plant gauge every turn as soon as your battle phase starts. So he can be a free continuous gauge generator as long as he stays out on your board. He also makes an excellent rush card on turn 2, since your ride line will be giving you 1 plant token, and then you can call him and he'll give you 2 more. You'll have an almost full board, having only used 1 card from your hand. So that can definitely help this deck's early game rush as well. So he can be both an important offensive card and a resource card for this deck. So the only other grade 2 we're running are 4 copies of Luster Impact Dragon. So he has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if your back row has 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, this unit gets boost and power plus 5,000. So your Noblesserose is obviously going to be always on your back row center, so that should get you halfway to meeting this condition on its own. So as long as you can get at least 1 other grade 1 or lower into your back row, then this card can be a 15k body on your board, and he can be either an attacker or a booster. Now since he himself is grade 2, obviously you can't have more than 1 of him in your back row, or you won't be able to meet the condition for him to be able to boost. But most of the time you want him in your front row anyway, because we want to take advantage of his auto ability that says once per turn, when this unit stands by the ability of your Vanguard with Granfia or Leonorn in its card name, if your Vanguard's power is 33,000 or greater, you can Soul Blast 1 to draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this card is your primary restand target for Granfia's ability. If you have your back row set up, then his first skill makes him a 15k base on his own. So even if he has to attack unboosted, he can at least poke your opponent's Vanguard. And then once you restand him off of Granfia's ability, he will be gaining at least 15,000 power from that skill. And then if you activate his ability, then he'll get an extra 5k on top of that as well, bringing him to a minimum of 35,000 for his second attack. Potentially much more if you send more plant gauge or you persona road that turn or what have you. So he should be able to hit massive numbers on his own, as well as being a nice draw engine for the deck. Now your Vanguard does have to have at least 33,000 power in order for you to activate this skill. So the timing of the skill when it resolves the boost from your Noblesserose token is still being added to Granfia at that point. So you just need to be careful about how many plant gauges you send to the drop with Granfia's skill, since obviously he'll be losing 5,000 power for each one that you send. So be mindful of that and don't send too many in order to drop his power too low to where you can't use this skill. But with as many plant gauges as this deck can generate most of the time, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. So do be mindful of that to keep him at least over 33,000. But when you restand Luster Impact, you get that extra draw and the power up as well for just a Soul Blast cost. So an absolutely vital card for this deck. So that is all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 4 copies of Burrow Mushrooms. So he has an activate ability that says you can put this unit into your soul to call up to 2 plant tokens to rearguard circle. And if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, you choose one of your rearguards and it gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this is another very important card in this deck for helping you generate your plant gauges. It is a -1, but it gives you an extra soul resource. It gives you 2 plant gauges onto your Noblesserose, and it can give you 5,000 power to one of your rearguards, which you could give that 5k to the unit you want to restand off of Granfia, which would be Luster Impact most of the time. In which case you can double your mileage out of that, since that'll power up 2 of your attacks that turn by 5k. Alternatively, you could give the 5k to your other column, the one you won't be restanding, since a lot of times that column is going to be your weakest attack of that turn. So you can power it up to help it actually do a little bit more. Or alternatively, you could actually give that power to your Noblesserose to power up your center column even further, which will make it that much easier to keep Granfia at 33k in order to use Luster Impact skill. So depending on the situation, you can choose where you want to allocate that 5k to, but overall this is one of the most important utility cards in this deck, so a definite 4 of. Next up, we have 4 copies of Fairy of Candor, Darien. So she has an auto ability when she's on your back row rearguard circle that says at the beginning of your battle phase, if you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, you call up to 1 plant token to rearguard circle, and if you have a Noblesserose token on your rearguard circle, you can counterblast 1 and draw a card. So again, this is another excellent card for this deck. It can be a continuous plant gauge generator, giving you 1 free plant gauge at the beginning of your battle phase every turn, as long as she stays on your board. She's also another draw engine for the deck with a counterblast cost instead of a soul blast cost like Luster Impact. So very nice in maintaining your card advantage as well. And again, this can be a very effective early rush card. If you went second on turn 1, you can call her and you'll get a free plant token onto your board. So again, that can be a way to help fill in your board early in order to get some extra attacks without using up much of your hand early on. So overall, just a very, very helpful card. So next up, we got 3 copies of my boy Farmin' Pumpkin, who has one of my absolute favorite artworks in this entire game. I absolutely love it. Look at his hat. It's great. But anyway, he's got an activate ability that says once per turn, if you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 and call a plant token to rearguard circle. And if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can call up to 2 tokens instead of 1. So again, yet another plant gauge generator for this deck. I generally don't want to use his ability until you hit grade 3 in order to get as much mileage as possible out of that Soul Blast, since we do have quite a bit of Soul Blasting costs in this deck. But he can give you up to 2 plant gauges for that 1 soul, which this card combos very nicely with Burrow Mushrooms, since you can call Mushrooms, put it into your soul to get 2 plant gauge and power up one of your units, and then send that Mushrooms from soul to drop in order to pay Farmin' Pumpkin's cost to get 2 more plant gauge as well. So at that point, it would basically just be a -1 for 4 plant gauges and a plus 5k to one of your units. So a very nice skill, and since it is an activate ability, if you can keep him out on your board, you can repeatedly use the skill every turn as well, as long as you can keep paying that cost. So another nice way to keep your gauge count up. So then next we have 3 copies of Performing Petal Diantha. So her auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can counterblast 1 to choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop and call it to rearguard circle. So a counterblast 1 for a +1, letting you revive any unit you want from your drop. So again, this card can combo very well with Burrow Mushrooms after you Soul Blast him out. You can revive him from your drop back to your board to put him into your soul again and get another 2 plant gauge. So it can help you loop your mushrooms. It can help you revive any of your key combo pieces you need on your board that your opponent potentially picked off. If you had to intercept with Ran or Rangerine or something, and you revive him from the drop, you can use his on-place skill again. So just a very versatile ability in helping you get the combo pieces that you need at the time, as well as helping you fill up your board. And then she also has our continuous ability that says during your turn, if you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards in your back row, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So she should be at a 13k base at most times as well. Again, your Noblesserose will be half of this condition constantly. So you just need 1 more grade 1 or lower in order to get that little power boost, which could be Diantha herself if she's in your back row. So again, just a very helpful card for the deck. So the only other grade 1s we have are our Sentinels. So first off, we have our 3 copies of Custodial Dragon. Just your standard perfect guard. as well as our 1 copy of the Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crits, 4 fronts, 4 heals, and 1 over. So starting first with the crits, we have 4 copies of Aspiring Maiden, Alana. So crit with a skill, at the end of the battle it boosted, you can put it in your soul to give one of your units plus 2k. So just another soul gain option for the deck. Additionally, we have 3 copies of Sylvan Beast Jackalope. So just your vanilla crit. Next, for the fronts, we have 4 copies of Frenzied Heiress. So front with a skill, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, get shield plus 5,000. So your 20k shield, front trigger. And then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Rhythmica Kiwi. So just the vanilla heal. As always, if you want to run any of the effect heals, you can feel free to do so. And then lastly, for the over trigger, we have our 1 copy of Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor. So his additional effect lets you draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets critical plus 1 until end of turn. All your front row units get power plus 10,000. And if your damage zone has the same number of cards as your opponent's or more, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. So a crit, front, draw, and heal, all rolled into 1. Always a very powerful trigger. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And I think we'll fight Danji this time. And we will be going first. And we open with our over trigger. Alright, so we'll discard that heal to ride. And then just end our turn. And we'll let that one through. Alright, so let's discard. I think I had to drop my pumpkin boy as much as I hate to. To ride. And grade 1 Granfia will let us call a plant token to our rear guard circle, so we'll put it behind our Vanguard. And then we'll call Ran or Rangerine. And use his skill to call out another plant token that we'll put over here. And then I think we'll just go ahead and attack. And at the start of the battle phase, our Rangerine will give us another plant token, which we will put back there. So now we can attack with our plant token column first. And then we can attack with Granfia, boosted by a plant token. And we got our pumpkin boy back. Nice. And he did get a front trigger there, so a Rangerine won't be able to hit anything, unfortunately. So I had to just end our turn. And I'll let that one through.
ノーガード。
ドライブチェック。
ダメージチェック。クリティカルトリガー。
And we get a crit trigger that is wasted,
クリティカルプラ
unfortunately.
ス。パワープラス。
ターンエンド。
スタンド&ドロー。
Alright, so now thanks to our grade 2 Granfia, since we got a plant token out, we can ride without having to discard.
切れる。ライド。
So we'll ride into Lavian Lord Granfia. And the first thing we want to do is use his activate ability to Soul Blast one.
スキル発動。
And turn our 3 plant tokens into plant gauge. And call our Noblesserose. So she gains 15,000 power thanks to the 3 plant gauge she has. So next we will go ahead and call our Burrow Mushrooms.
コール。
And we will use his activate ability
スキル発動。
to shove him into Soul. And we can get 2 more plant gauge. And we can give one of our Regards 5k. So I'm actually going to give that power to a
パワー
Rangerine.
プラス。
So then we'll call Luster Impact
コール。
to our front row. And we'll call Darien
コール。
behind him, which will trigger his continuous ability to give him an extra 5k. And then we'll call Farm and Pumpkin
コール。
behind a Rangerine. And we'll go ahead and use Farm and Pumpkin's ability as well to Soul Blast one.
スキル発動。
And gain 2 more plant gauge, bringing us to a total of 7, and our Noblesserose up to a whopping 40,000 power. So we are good to go, so we will attack. And again, since it's the start of the battle phase, our Rangerine's skill will give us another plant gauge. And Darien's skill as well will give us 1 more. And then we can counter blast and draw. So now we have 9 plant gauges and 50,000 power on our Noblesserose. So first off, we want to attack with Luster Impact Dragon, not boosted.
ヴァンガードにアタック。
ノーガードだ。まだまだダメージチェック。
So then we can attack with Granfia, boosted by Noblesserose, for a whopping 63,000.
ノーガード。
ドライブチェック。ヒールトリガー。
And we get a heal trigger, which we don't get, but we will give that power to a Rangerine.
パワープラス。ドライブチェック。これが私の本気よ。アタック。
ダメージチェック。
So then we can use Granfia's ability, and we can send up to 5 of our plant gauge to the drop. So let's see, we have 9, so if we send all 5, it'd still be at 25, 38. So yeah, we can go ahead and send all 5 and we'll still meet the threshold.
このスキルで決着よ。
So now we can choose one of our Regards, so we choose Luster
パワー
Impact.
プラス。
He gains 25,000 power and restands. And we can use his skill to Soul Blast one
スキル発動。
to draw again and gain another 5k. So now we can attack with a Rangerine, boosted by Farm and Pumpkin.
ヴァンガードにアタック。
ノーガード。ダメージチェック。よし。クリティカルトリガーだ。
And he gets a crit
クリ
trigger.
ティカルプラス。
Well, we got him to 5 already, and he hadn't even hit grade 3 yet. So we can attack with Luster Impact, boosted by Darien, for 53,000. And he perfect guards.
スキル発動。完全ガードだ。 スタンド&ドローブルースにライドだ Vanguard にアタック
So I'll go ahead and let that one through.
ノーガード
ドライブチェックドライブチェックドロートリガー
He gets a draw trigger.
プラスさあ食いしばれ一気火星のド派手な一撃だ
ダメージチェック
ターンエン
私のターンドロー
Alright, so unfortunately we don't get our Persona ride. But he's at 5 damage, but he's got 10 cards in his hand. So we'll see if he can survive this or not. So let's see, we've got 4 plant gauges right now, and only 1 soul. And I want to save that for Luster Impact skill, so we actually can't use Farming Pumpkin right now. We'll gain 2 more thanks to Darien and Orangerine. So I think that should be enough. So we will go ahead and attack. So Orangerine gives us our 1 plant gauge. And Darien gives us 1 more. And again, we can counter blast with her skill and draw. So now we can attack with Luster Impact first and not boosted.
ヴァンガードにアタック
ガード
So then we can attack with Granfia, boosted by Noblesserose for 48,000. And he perfect guards again.
発動完全ガードするぜ
ドライブチェックドライブチェック
Alright, so now Granfia's skill will let us send just 3 plant gauge this time because we want to stay above 33,000.
スキル発動これが今の私のすべて
But that'll still be enough to restand Luster Impact and give him 15k. And then his skill, Soul Blast once again
スキル発動
to draw
パワープラス
and gain 5 more k. So then we'll attack with our Rangerine.
ヴァンガードにアタック
ガード
And then attack once again with Luster Impact Dragon, boosted by Darien for 43,000.
ノーガード
Oh, and he's got to let it through.
ダメージチェック
And we got him with that one.
私の勝ちねやった
So we managed to take him out before he even hit grade 4. So there you go. That was my Granfia deck. I actually do like this deck quite a bit. I like all the decks that use plant tokens. So anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. I believe next up I will be doing Vanguard. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.